In the shadowy depths of American history lies a battlefield where the veil between past and present grows mysteriously thin. At Little Bighorn, where the echo of gunfire has long since faded, something else lingers in the summer breeze. From ghostly cavalry charges heard in empty fields to spectral warriors glimpsed at dusk, this hallowed ground holds secrets that continue to haunt visitors and locals alike. Join us as we unravel the supernatural legacy of Custer's last stand, where history's wounds run deep and the spirits of fallen warriors may still walk among us. Subscribe to explore more haunted histories of America's most legendary battlefields. The Battle of Little Bighorn's final moments on Last Stand Hill unfolded as one of the most gruesome scenes in American military history. As the sun cast long shadows across the blood-soaked grass, approximately 200 men of the 7th Cavalry Regiment lay scattered across the battlefield, their bodies testament to the ferocity of the engagement. The wounded soldiers, their mobility severely restricted by arrows protruding from their bodies, were forced to witness an unspeakable spectacle, their fellow cavalrymen meeting violent ends through brutal hand-to-hand combat. The air was thick with the sounds of combat, the dull thud of war clubs, the sharp ring of metal weapons, and the anguished cries of dying men. In the battle's aftermath, following traditional warfare practices, Sioux women moved methodically through the field of carnage. Their actions were driven by deeply held spiritual beliefs rather than mere vengeance. According to their customs, they systematically dismembered the dead, believing that mutilation of the earthly body would carry over into the spiritual realm. They methodically severed heads and limbs, and with calculated precision, used arrows to pierce the eyes and ears of the fallen soldiers. This ritualistic mutilation stemmed from their belief that the dead would carry these wounds into the afterlife, forever wandering in eternity without sight, hearing, or physical wholeness. This grim episode marked only the beginning of Last Stand Hill's supernatural legacy. The Crow people, who had long inhabited these lands, began reporting unusual phenomena in the years following the battle. Their accounts were not isolated incidents, but formed a consistent pattern of supernatural encounters that persisted through generations. The frequency and consistency of these spiritual manifestations led to an unusual nickname for the cemetery superintendent, the ghost herder. This title originated from a specific belief among the Crow. They were convinced that the lowering of the flag at dusk served as a signal for the spirits to emerge from their eternal rest. According to their accounts, these apparitions would roam freely throughout the night, only retreating when the flag was raised again at dawn, as if responding to some unwritten protocol between the worlds of the living and the dead. The supernatural legacy of Last Stand Hill continues to resonate in modern times. Contemporary visitors and park employees regularly report inexplicable occurrences that echo the historical trauma of the site. Among the most striking accounts are those from solitary visitors to the cemetery, who describe hearing what sounds like an entire cavalry charge, the thundering of hooves, the jingle of military equipment, and the war cries of Native American warriors. These acoustic phenomena occur despite the complete absence of any visible source, leaving witnesses both awestruck and unsettled by their experience. Among the most compelling accounts from Little Bighorn visitors are the frequent reports of inexplicable temperature anomalies across the battlefield. Multiple witnesses describe walking through distinct pockets of frigid air, particularly striking given these encounters often occur during the warmest summer days. The phenomenon appears localized and temporary, yet consistently reported by different visitors throughout the years. The emotional impact of Last Stand Hill seems especially potent, with numerous visitors describing an overwhelming sensation of profound grief and desolation that descends without warning. One particularly remarkable account comes from a visitor who experienced what he described as a vivid temporal displacement. While standing on the hill, he witnessed what appeared to be a complete replay of the historic battle, condensed into mere moments of real time. The vision, he reported, spared no detail. From the initial engagement to the battle's bloody conclusion, every moment unfolded before him with unsettling clarity. Perhaps most unsettling are the experiences of those who work at the site. One park ranger's encounter at dusk proved particularly unnerving. While performing his duties alone on the hill, he experienced a sudden and distinct cold sensation passing through his body, followed immediately by what he described as multiple voices carried on the evening breeze. The experience proved so disturbing that the ranger, despite his professional duties, felt compelled to abandon his post and leave the area immediately. The ranger's account stands out for both its clarity and the visceral fear it induced in an individual presumably accustomed to working in this historic location. During the 1980s, a particularly compelling incident was documented by a Crow ranger working at the Little Bighorn Battlefield. The encounter occurred during her routine evening duties when the fading light of dusk cast long shadows across the historic grounds. As she performed her assigned tasks, her attention was drawn to an unusual sight on the ridge. Two distinctly visible figures on horseback, their silhouettes clearly defined against the darkening sky. The warriors, as she described them, appeared equipped with traditional shields and bows, their forms remarkable in their detail and clarity. Most striking in her account was the moment when one of the mounted figures shifted position, seemingly to observe her more closely. The ranger maintained her vigil until darkness completely enveloped the landscape, watching these mysterious figures with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. The following morning, driven by both professional duty and personal curiosity, the ranger returned to the exact location where she had witnessed the apparitions. Despite the clear visibility and favorable conditions for tracking, her thorough search revealed something even more puzzling. There were no signs whatsoever of equine or human presence. The ground showed no hoofprints, no disturbed vegetation, no physical evidence that would corroborate her sighting. This incident connects directly to another focal point of paranormal activity at Little Bighorn, the historic stone house. Constructed in 1894, this building served as the cemetery superintendent's residence and stands as one of the oldest structures on the battlefield grounds. The building's dark history includes its macabre function as a temporary morgue, with its basement serving as a storage facility for bodies awaiting burial in the cemetery. This grim historical detail perhaps explains why the stone house has become what many consider a nexus of supernatural activity, its halls and rooms playing host to numerous unexplained phenomena over the decades. Contemporary accounts from Stonehouse residents continue to add to the building's supernatural reputation, with multiple occupants reporting consistent and unexplainable phenomena. The most frequently documented disturbances include the distinct sound of footsteps traversing the staircase during nighttime hours. Even more inexplicable are the numerous reports from park rangers who have witnessed the building's lights activating independently, despite the premises being vacant and the electrical switches confirmed to be in the off position. A particularly unsettling incident occurred in the 1980s involving a newly assigned park employee residing in the stone building's upstairs apartment. During his first night in residence, he experienced what would become one of the most dramatic documented encounters in the building's history. The employee reported being suddenly awakened by the physical sensation of being pulled from his bed. In a reflexive response to the perceived threat, he reached for his Colt .45 pistol, which he had placed on the nearby nightstand. What he witnessed next defied explanation: the partial apparition of a soldier's torso, notably missing both head and legs, floating through the air before disappearing into the adjacent room. During the same decade, another remarkable encounter was reported by a different employee at the visitor's center. While returning equipment after hours, the staff member entered a back room and observed what appeared to be a soldier standing in the shadows. Initially assuming it was a coworker attempting to play a practical joke, the employee decided to feign ignorance of the presence and continue with their task, curious to see how the supposed prankster would proceed. This strategic response would lead to an even more startling revelation in the following moments. As the employee continued restocking supplies, maintaining peripheral awareness of the shadowy figure, events took an unexpected turn that defied rational explanation. Rather than executing the anticipated scare tactic, the mysterious soldier simply turned and walked, not toward the door, but directly through it, passing through the solid wooden barrier as if it were mere vapor. This incident marked yet another unexplained occurrence in the building's growing paranormal history. Among the most well-documented spectral appearances at Little Bighorn is that of Lieutenant Benjamin H. Hodgson, whose presence has been reported multiple times across the battlefield grounds. One of the most compelling accounts comes from a student intern who experienced an unsettling encounter while staying at the house. Having dozed off on the sofa, she was abruptly awakened in the middle of the night by an inexplicable feeling of overwhelming dread. Upon opening her eyes, she was confronted with the apparition of a man seated at a nearby table. The figure, distinctive for his handlebar mustache, appeared deeply troubled, his countenance reflecting profound distress. The vision lasted only moments before dissolving into the darkness. The story took an even more remarkable turn during the intern's subsequent tour of the battlefield. She found herself inexplicably drawn to the memorial dedicated to Lloyd Hodgson, though she had no prior knowledge of its significance. The true weight of her experience became apparent upon returning to the visitor center, where a colleague showed her a historical photograph. The image revealed the face of Lieutenant Hodgson, and the intern immediately recognized him as the mysterious figure she had encountered the previous night. The handlebar mustache and facial features matched exactly with her vivid memory of the apparition. Further testament to the site's lingering spiritual energy comes from former guide James Thompson, who shared his experience with artifacts stored in the facility's vault. Among these preserved items are pieces of blood-stained clothing recovered from fallen soldiers of the battle. Thompson recounted a particularly intense encounter while examining these artifacts. During his inspection, he experienced an unsettling physical reaction, a distinct prickling sensation across his scalp that served as a precursor to an even more disturbing experience. The convergence of these separate but interconnected accounts, each independently verified by credible witnesses, continues to add layers to the complex supernatural narrative surrounding the Little Bighorn Battlefield. The specificity of details, particularly in the case of Lieutenant Hodgson's identification, lends substantial weight to these otherwise inexplicable encounters. Thompson's experience with the artifacts intensified dramatically as he described being overwhelmed by powerful waves of sheer terror and despair that seemed to course through his entire being. The intensity of these emotions led him to conclude that he had experienced what he termed a psychic echo, a residual emotional imprint left behind by one of the soldiers who had fallen in battle. The supernatural narrative of the old stone house gained further credibility through the experiences of Park Ranger Al Jacobson and his wife Florence, who took up residence in an apartment within the historic building. Their home was strategically positioned at a convergence of significant locations, adjacent to the battlefield cemetery and centrally located within the battlefield itself. Prior to moving in, the couple had been warned by local Native American residents about the building's reputation for paranormal activity. Like many skeptics, they initially dismissed these warnings as mere folklore. However, their skepticism gradually eroded in the face of inexplicable occurrences. Among the most convincing incidents was their shared experience of watching a doorknob turn and the door open of its own accord, despite no physical presence being detected on the other side. This event was accompanied by the frequent occurrence of unexplained footsteps throughout the building. One particularly notable incident occurred during an evening when Jacobson was screening home movies in the lower level of the house. Despite the upstairs apartment being verifiably empty at the time, he distinctly heard the sound of footsteps traversing the floor above. Acting on instinct, Jacobson immediately rushed upstairs to investigate. Upon reaching the upper floor, he found the apartment completely vacant. The layout of the building, with its single staircase, the same one Jacobson had just ascended, made it impossible for anyone to have exited without encountering him during his hasty ascent. This incident, with its clear timeline and physical impossibility of conventional explanation, stands as one of the most compelling pieces of evidence supporting the building's reputation for paranormal activity. The paranormal legacy of Little Bighorn continues unabated into the present day, with new accounts regularly adding to the site's supernatural chronicle. Yet beyond these ghostly tales lies another compelling historical narrative, a vivid account of traditional Native American buffalo hunting that captures the raw energy and skill of these remarkable hunters. In one particularly dramatic episode, witnessed and documented firsthand, a massive buffalo bull emerged suddenly from a nearby depression in the landscape. In hot pursuit was a young Native American hunter, displaying extraordinary horsemanship as he rode bareback, without even the aid of stirrups. The boy's small horse, driven by its rider's determination, rapidly closed the gap between predator and prey. The buffalo, despite its enormous bulk, showed remarkable speed, its condition evident in its aggressive posture, tail rigid, tongue extended, and jaws streaming with foam as it pushed its tremendous mass to its absolute limits. The young hunter, identified as Hailstorm, demonstrated exceptional skill as he maneuvered his mount alongside the charging buffalo. In a display of masterful horsemanship, he released his grip on the reins, allowing his horse to run freely while he reached for his quiver. The movement was executed with lightning precision, his hand finding and drawing an arrow in one fluid motion that spoke of years of practiced expertise. Hailstorm's attack came in swift succession, 3 arrows released with deadly accuracy, each finding its mark in the buffalo's vital areas. His confidence and skill were evident in his vocal expressions of triumph, his war cries echoing across the landscape with each successful shot. The young hunter's taunting calls to his prey revealed not just youthful bravado, but a deep connection to this traditional practice of his people. The buffalo, however, was far from surrendering. Despite its wounds, the massive animal repeatedly turned to charge its pursuer, demonstrating the dangerous nature of this hunting practice. Hailstorm's horse proved equally crucial to the hunt, displaying remarkable agility as it continually evaded the buffalo's aggressive lunges. The dance between hunter and hunted reached its climax when the wounded buffalo, in a final burst of desperate energy, launched a ferocious charge. This aggressive move temporarily forced Hailstorm to retreat, with the massive creature, described aptly as a shaggy monster, maintaining close pursuit. This detailed account provides invaluable insight into traditional Native American hunting practices, highlighting not just the physical techniques involved, but also the complex relationship between hunter and prey. The narrative captures the dangerous yet essential nature of buffalo hunting, a practice that required extraordinary skill, courage, and a deep understanding of both the buffalo's behavior and the landscape itself. The account stands as a testament to the sophisticated hunting traditions that were integral to Plains Indian culture, preserving a moment of living history amid the ghostly echoes of Little Bighorn's more tragic past. Throughout the intense chase, Hailstorm displayed remarkable composure and skill, maintaining his position on his mount with seemingly effortless determination. Despite the dangerous nature of the pursuit, the young hunter's confidence was evident as he turned toward observers, his laughter carrying across the landscape, a testament to both his expertise and youthful exuberance. The hunt reached its climax as Hailstorm once again positioned himself alongside the buffalo, which by this point had been driven to a state of complete desperation. The animal's condition was striking, its eyes blazing wildly through its matted mane, blood streaming from both mouth and nostrils, creating a vivid picture of primal confrontation. The dramatic chase concluded as both pursuer and pursued disappeared over the horizon, their forms silhouetted against the sky before vanishing from view. A contingent of Native American riders immediately spurred their horses forward at full gallop to follow the action, while the remaining observers, including the chronicler, followed at a more measured pace. Upon cresting the hill, they discovered the buffalo had fallen, its massive form lying still on the hillside. What followed was a remarkable demonstration of traditional butchering practices, showcasing generations of accumulated knowledge and skill. The gathered hunters immediately set to work with an impressive array of specialized knives, their movements displaying a precise efficiency that spoke of deep familiarity with the task. Their technique was so refined that complex sinew connections were severed with surgical precision, and even the largest bones were skillfully disarticulated. The speed and expertise of their work transformed the enormous buffalo carcass into methodically separated portions with remarkable efficiency. The post-hunt ritual that followed provided fascinating insights into traditional Native American customs surrounding the buffalo harvest, though the account reflects the cultural biases of its 19th century European American observer. The hunters engaged in the immediate consumption of certain prized parts of the animal, practice that held deep cultural and nutritional significance. Some members of the group focused on extracting and consuming the nutrient-rich marrow from the larger bones, while others harvested and ate selected portions of organ meat, particularly the liver, which was highly valued for its nutritional content. The intensity of the butchering process left many of the participants with blood-stained faces, creating an appearance that the writer, viewing through a lens of cultural unfamiliarity, found unsettling. The account describes an offer from White Shield, who had prepared a marrow bone with particular skill, exposing the prized interior content. Another hunter offered a portion of the stomach lining, both gestures representing significant acts of hospitality within their cultural context, though the writer declined these offerings. A particularly noteworthy observation involved a young boy who was carefully extracting what was considered a delicacy from the buffalo's throat and jaw area, demonstrating how these hunting and butchering practices were passed down through generations. The account concludes with an important cultural insight. The Native American approach to buffalo harvesting was governed by specific protocols and taboos. Not all parts of the animal were considered appropriate for immediate consumption, and there were strict cultural guidelines about which portions could be eaten during these impromptu field preparations. The practice of indiscriminate consumption would have been considered highly inappropriate within their cultural framework. This detailed account, preserved through Francis Parkman's observations, provides valuable documentation of traditional Native American buffalo hunting and processing practices, though it must be understood within the context of its era's cultural perspectives and biases. The description captures both the physical techniques and cultural significance of these practices, offering insights into a crucial aspect of Plains Indian life during this historical period. From the haunting echoes of cavalry charges to the mysterious figure of Lieutenant Hodgson, Little Bighorn remains a place where history and the supernatural intertwine. Whether you believe in the ghostly warriors who appear at dusk, the unexplained footsteps in the stone house, or the psychic echoes that linger in blood-stained artifacts, one thing is certain: the battle's final moments have left an indelible mark on this sacred ground. Join us next time as we explore more of America's most haunted battlefields, where the past refuses to rest and the spirits of warriors still stand guard. Subscribe to uncover more mysteries of our nation's haunted history.